I somehow have wound up in space in the magnificent Trekkie future. I need to find an attorney as quickly as possible. Where do I start? Who's going to be the closest thing to an attorney that I can find in space?
Well, where in space are you? Space is a big place.
I know that. I don't know where I am. I'm on the thing that doesn't move. I'm in Deep Space Nine.
Well, you would go down to Odo's office and tell him that you need to speak to the advocate. I mean, you go to the sheriff's office, right? Who's going to be closer to a lawyer than the sheriff, right? So Odo's basically the de facto sheriff. He's the head of security. It's not an exciting or sexy answer, but it's accurate.
It's a good answer. Welcome to Too Legitimate to Quit, instantly actionable small business strategies with a pop culture spin. I am your host, Annie P. Ruggles, and my guest today is the fantastic Noel Bagwell. Noel is an attorney, author, thought leader, speaker, and influencer. He owns Executive LP, a niche legal practice based in Nashville, Tennessee. The Executive LP provides preventive legal services to U.S. small businesses. Using what he calls the 5 good legal E's, he helps businesses increase their value, lower stress for decision makers, and reduce legal risk. Noel has also won numerous awards, such as the Tennessee Supreme Court's Attorney for Justice Award in 2016, 17, and 2019, and the Clarksville, Tennessee Mayor's Certificate for Servant Leadership, Ongoing Sacrifice, and Commitment to Collaboration and Inclusion within our small business community. Don't you just love the sound of that? Welcome to Too Legitimate to Quit. Noel, I'm so glad you're here. What do small businesses need to focus on this week?
I think small businesses need to focus on improving what I call legal profitability. And that already we're off to a start of saying, huh? What?
Exactly. I'm like, oh, we're
right. Like first sentence out of my mouth requires unpacking. Sorry about that.
Well, you're a lawyer, dear. I don't think anyone's surprised by that.
No.
Continue.
So legal profitability is a key performance indicator. It's a metric that measures how lawyers contribute to the bottom line of a business. Pretty much makes sense?
Yeah.
What we want to do with legal profitability when we're improving legal profitability is make sure that we're tracking the things that lawyers do for a business and aligning all of the legal services with the business's enterprise objectives. So if your objective is to add more value to your business, make your company more valuable, make your business more valuable, legal profitability does that by tracking the way that lawyers build asset ecosystems with their clients.
Asset ecosystem.
They add value and enhance profitability. A lot of it is intellectual property, but not always. I mean, there are tons of different kinds of assets in a business, and lawyers have something to say, some way to serve the client that relates to each one of those assets. If it's about reducing stress, and there's an intuitive kind of, when we think about stress, there's kind of an intuitive way that we think about it. And then there's a less intuitive way that we think about it. The first one, the intuitive way, is stress like anxiety, right? Like, oh my God, I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm working myself.
I am deeply experiencing stress. I am in the throes of stress.
In the throes of stress. Yes. That's the way when people think about stress, they think about it at a personal human level. But there's also stress on an organization that's kind of like the stress on a ship of wind and waves pounding against the ship, the strain of the weight of the cargo against, the ship being pulled in different directions. There's that kind of stress. There's structural stress. on your business as well, that comes from both within, from different forces in your business, pulling it in different directions, and forces without that are impacting your business in different ways. All of those come down to relationships, really. I think for the most part, it's relationships. So lawyers do a great job of helping to manage relationships, and developing relationship management solutions is one way that lawyers reduce friction in the business and lower stress levels for decision makers, and lower the stress, the strain on the business itself. And then finally, a way that lawyers improve legal profitability is by preventing legal risks from becoming legal problems. Every single business has legal risks, but those with legal support have fewer legal problems. The life cycle of a risk starts with there being some risk, and then it goes untended and becomes a problem, which goes untended and becomes a crisis, like a lawsuit or the government fining your business for violating a regulation or not complying with a regulation, something like that.
What a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. But and then even worse, perhaps, is losing a key employee. Because,
of course.
Yeah, someone like, that's absolutely essential to your team. What if they leave? What if you don't have the right confidentiality, non-disclosure, non-compete, non-solicitation provisions in their employment agreement? Or what if they're badly written, and what if they're not enforceable? Like, all of these things that I'm saying are probably contributing to stress as you listen to it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Especially because I know so very little legal anything that I didn't learn from a true crime documentary.
Well, so many small business owners are in exactly that position.
Yeah, I mean, I could litigate a murder. I could try to defend my own business. And I think that's so incredibly interesting, because when I think of legal, it cerebrally makes sense to me that prevention and risk prevention and all of that would save me money. And yet, when I think, and one of the things I love so much about your work is when I think about legal, I just see me writing a big fat check with a crap ton of zeros in it and sending that out into the world. So I love your focus on the fact that legal can both save me money and make me money, because
absolutely,
that's the only thing we hear. Is I feel like a lot of small businesses are looking at legal still as, when I have a problem, I will find an attorney, my attorney will help me, I will pay them, and then we will do the best we can.
But by then it's too late.
Right. By then exactly. By then it's too late. So if you build a relationship with an ethical, aligned attorney, you're saying everyone should do that when in the process, as soon as possible, within year one. What's your idea?
Yeah, no, as soon as possible. And when you're planning a new venture, that's when you should talk to the lawyer for the first time. When you're writing the business plan, that's when you should call a lawyer. And it's fine at that phase for it to be anyone who's a pretty familiar with business lawyer, and just ask them some general questions, almost as a favor. Get an initial consultation. Tell them in advance, say, I'm not at the point where I can hire a lawyer yet, but I want to be a responsible business owner and at least ask you some basic legal questions. Can you help me with that? Can you do that? A lot of lawyers will do that, at no cost, especially, lawyers in a smaller practice. Like, don't go to a big law firm and ask for free legal services. But if you go to someone in a smaller firm or a solo practitioner and you say, look, I'm going to need a lawyer in this business. It's not time for me to hire one yet, and I know that, but I do need some basic insight as I plan the business, as I write this business plan. Can you help me out? And one of the things that they can help you out with is forecasting the cost of legal services. So whenever I started Executive Legal Professionals, one of the things, there were two big problems that I needed to solve, and I was aware of one of them at the time. I became aware of the other one deeper in.
As most of us do.
Yeah, I mean, it's learn as you go, right? Like,
most of us discover the hole when we fall into it, right? So,
well, this wasn't that kind of an insight that I needed to learn, as I will reveal presently, but My grandfather used to say, live and learn, die and forget it all. So
that is gorgeous. I hope that's
yeah.
on his tombstone. That is beautiful.
So the first problem that I needed to solve for small business owners was predictability.
Mm-hmm.
It was making sure that people could budget for legal services, because if you're writing a check for a lawyer, then you need to be able to know what the amount is, or you're not going to have the money in your budget to do it, and you're just going to kick the can further down the road.
Yep.
So when you're planning that new business, if you go to a small business lawyer and you say, hey, what should I budget every year? They ought to be able to tell you. Now, my firm approaches this in a radically different way from the way pretty much every other lawyer I know does it. What we do is we have a contract with our client, a written contract, and a lot of lawyers do use written contracts, but our contract says that we will provide unlimited remote legal consultation service to the client, unlimited de minimis legal services, all the things that lawyers use to pad their bill usually, unlimited legal research, and all the other services that are included in the legal service plan on an unlimited basis. And we charge a subscription fee for it, either quarterly or annually. And for businesses that have less than $1 million in revenue, we have this service called Legal Lifeline. It includes these things that I mentioned, and it costs $1,500 per quarter or $4,800 per year. So you save about $100 a month doing it on an annual basis.
But that's still all the legal protection that most small businesses at that point, up to that point of revenue, need for under $5,000 a year.
A year.
That is cray-cray.
Yeah, it's an extremely valuable service, and it's designed. And you might say, well, why do you set it up as a subscription? Well, it comes down to incentives. If you have ever read a wonderful book by Guarney, his name is Guarney, last name is Guarney. He's an economist. Stroop and Lee.
I guarantee you I have never read any book written by any economist.
Okay. Well, this one's called Common Sense Economics.
Nope.
And it's really, really good. It's written by all these economists that I mentioned and a few others. And they wrote it to make economics a little more accessible to their students as they were teaching economics at the college level. And they wrote this wonderful book, Common Sense Economics. And the very first rule, they've got 12 rules of economics in there. The very first one is incentives matter. So simple, so powerful. And incentives really, really do matter. When I was looking at the development of this subscription-based legal support service for small businesses, I thought, why is it that small business owners don't hire a lawyer in the first place? And if they do, why don't they call them? Why don't they use them? And the answer is subtle but simple. Lawyers on an annual average basis, not an annual basis, but on an average basis, the cost of general counsel is about $235 per hour. And so let's do the math. If you're having a 12-minute phone conversation with your lawyer, that's $47. And you're not going to pay $47 to talk to your lawyer for 12 minutes unless your hair is on fire.
Yes.
You really need a crisis to motivate you to do that. And so we want to change the game. We want to hear from our clients. In fact, when someone signs up for our Legal Lifeline service or our Signet General Counsel service, which is a much more robust type of ongoing legal support for businesses that have more than $1 million in revenue, that it's the right fit for them. We send out an email every single week reminding the client to check in with their lawyer for about 20 minutes. Just, hey, why don't you schedule a quick 20-minute check-in this week? They get an email every single week. We want to hear from our clients about what's going on, because we can't prevent those risks from becoming problems, from becoming crises, unless we are embedded in their business, we're involved in the decision-making processes, we're there to support them. And like a meteorologist, we can forecast their risk and then give them actionable recommendations. And we found in doing that, the other insight was, even if we make the cost of the service predictable, and I can tell you, no matter what the size of your business is and no matter what market it's located in the United States, down to the penny, what you should be spending on preventive legal services based on actual market data. So we have an algorithm that uses all these market statistics. And what we do is put in the size of your business into the algorithm and where it's located. And it tells us what you ought to be spending as a market rate based on what other businesses are spending on legal services, what you ought to be spending on preventive legal services. And I can tell you that a year in advance.
That's
so you can put it in your budget.
That's freaking gorgeous.
It's
you know what
wonderful.
It reminds me of? It reminds me of when we had our home inspection before we closed on our house. And they said, like, your roof is 15 years old. You might get an extra year or so out of it, but within 5 years, you're going to need to replace it. And the approximate cost for that is this. And what they did was they broke down the timeline of issues, the severity of issues, and they helped us rank them by saying, like, first, you cannot live in this house until these 5 things are fixed. Fix those things immediately, approximate cost this. Now, coming down the pipeline, right? Da-da-da-da-da, coming up, like all of these different things. And I love that because then what you're saying is not only that value, but you have, and one of the reasons why I think that you're such a great fit for this show is that you are so big on the relationship aspect that just like you're not going to spend $47 to talk to your lawyer for 12 minutes unless your hair's on fire, the time to fill your lawyer in about the nuances of your operation, how you work, how your employees work, what you provide, why you provide it, your specific IP. It sounds like the time to do that is also not when your hair's on fire. It's building that relationship earlier. And I think what's so amazing is that for other lawyers, they set that up to be very cost prohibitive, where you are like, no, the relationship is essential. The support.
Yeah, the relationship is essential. And you've got to remove the negative incentives to calling the lawyer, to talking to the lawyer, to having FaceTime with the lawyer. Other lawyers use, a receptionist, a legal secretary, a paralegal, maybe an associate, and then you might get to talk to like a partner level attorney. There are all these gatekeepers and all of that. We get rid of that. We have no gatekeepers. You have your lawyer's cell phone number and email address directly. You communicate directly with your lawyer. All the documents that we touch, everything that we review and create lives in a client portal. So if you ever need a copy of anything, you don't have to spend time on hold or deal with any humans. You just log in and download what you need anytime securely from the cloud. It's in a secure, encrypted, cloud-based storage solution. And so the relationship and the client experience matters the most. But you know what? All that, what I learned after doing that for several years was that all of that, even the love for the client, the promoting the relationship, making the cost predictable and measurable and all of that, I thought that would be enough because like you, I think, well, yeah, of course, I know I need the legal support as a responsible business owner, but it's still not enough because people don't make decisions to buy legal services or anything based on what they need. They make decisions to buy things based on what they want. And I thought, well, what do you want from me? I've spent all of these years trying to develop this perfect service.
Come on, y'all. I put it on subscription. I made it affordable.
What do you want from me?
I took away the paralegal element. What do you want?
But I was stupid. I was being stupid. For a moment, I stopped thinking like a small business owner, which is the way I started. Whenever I started the business, I started thinking, if I were a small business owner, what would I want my relationship with my lawyer to look like? That was our guiding question. And everything that we did in developing our business model, which we rebuilt from the ground up, we scrapped the traditional law firm legal business model, and we started over. And we let that question be our guide. And I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped asking that question as frequently. And when I brought it back to the forefront of my mind, it was like, of course, I need to see ROI. That's what I want. That's what will motivate me to want legal services, not just to need them because everybody does, but to want them. I want to see positive ROI. And it was from that insight that Profit from Legal has been born. And Profit from Legal is it's a service as a product. It's a business development program that's delivered over 6 months. And we start out with the client assessing where they are in terms of legal profitability, where they are in terms of this key performance indicator that I mentioned at the very beginning. Basically, how well is your lawyer doing as they try to build asset ecosystems, develop relationship management solutions, prevent legal risks from becoming problems, and add to the overall profitability of the business? How are they doing on a whole host of these legal key performance indicators, and which of those KPIs are most important to your business? And
Because
so
it's
we
not
do.
monolith.
No, they're not. And small businesses are absolutely unique, each and every one of them. And they need customized legal support. That's why, God bless LegalZoom and Legal Shield and all the other people, all of that. But what they're providing is a one size fits all solution. That's not a truly customized solution. It's a template. And like a Halloween costume, one size really doesn't fit all.
No, it really doesn't.
So I don't think that those solutions really are the best. It's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing. I think
it's better than nothing, but not much better than nothing. Because sometimes when you get a template off the internet and you fill it out or you customize it yourself and you think, I'm a smart person, I can read English, I know what English language words mean. You don't know what specific legal terms mean. Even though you might think you understand what that word means in English colloquially, generally in conversation, it may be a legal term of art that's charged up with tons of case law history and statutory definitions that are counterintuitive. And so even reading through that with like a college level education and understanding of the English language, you still may not really understand what you think you understand. It takes 3 years of law school for a reason. It takes passing the bar exam for a reason. We have these things in place for a reason. And ostensibly the reason is to have people who are specialists in the law. And you need someone like that watching your back and creating contracts for you and creating systems and processes in your business with you, and integrating legal support and legal services with your operations.
I love that you bring that up because I used one of those services last year. And what I didn't really understand, and the thought process that you just outlined was spot on, perfect. I was like, I think I understand this concept. I'll do a whole bunch of research. I'll figure it out. I'm college educated. I've been in business for a long time and I'm hiring someone, so I should figure this out. And specifically, I was looking at trademark applications. And what I didn't understand about those services, although I should have because of the fact that they're not that expensive, but what I should have realized was that I would be working with a team, like a bullpen of rotating lawyers, and that what they're designed to do, what their service is designed to do, is the bare minimum, and that there would be no back and forth, no interaction. And so my trademark got declined, and I asked questions and they were just basically like telling me the same thing over and over and over. They're like, nope, you got denied. I'm like, cool, what do I do now? And they're like, well, you got denied. I'm like, well, what do I do now? And they're like, well, you could pay us $200 and we could appeal it. Okay. What is the likelihood of that doing anything good? Is that the choice that I should make? And they basically were like, hey, we're not here to advise you.
That's horrifying because that's absolutely the opposite of the truth. They are there to advise you. And in fact, they're there to advise you before you file the application as to the right way to file it. And if you've ever done any kind of trademark registration application, and I don't want to go on a tangent about trademark stuff, but
we're about to go on a tangent about Star Trek. So if you could tie it in, then great.
I do want to address the point that you raised because it might be a really valuable thing for your listeners. You can either file based on intent to use or based on actual use in commerce. And one big mistake that a lot of people make early on is they file the 1A application based on their actual use in commerce before they can prove that they are in fact using that mark in commerce and that the mark has developed a secondary meaning in the minds of their consumers, such that the consumers, when they see that mark, they first think of your goods and services and you as the source of them. If that's not the case, you should probably file the 1B intent to use application. Then you've got 6 months to do the hard work of proving all those things that I just described. and your trademark attorney probably filed under 1A and your application got declined. And you can reapply later. It's still going to cost you more money, but at least then you'll have what you were after in the first place. It may have been better for them to file the 1B application and then do the follow-up after. And you can actually, with the 1B application, you can extend that 6-month deadline up to 5 times.
And that's the thing is that what's just absolutely boggling, and I have no problem being completely upfront with this with the listeners. I had 2 failed trademark applications, 2 failed, and I appealed both of them. And I then was told that the appeals were denied. And then I was told that I could be in some catalog of something, which of course I still don't understand, but I paid for that too. So all in all, for 2 failed trademarks that I do not have, that I cannot use, I spent about $2,000 last year.
Wow. That's stomach turning for me.
Your
yikes.
whole offering for businesses of my size, your whole offer for a year of support is only a little bit over 2 times that. That is insane. That is amazing and gorgeous. Listen, y'all, hire help from people that give a crap about your business.
Yeah, that's absolutely essential. People need to care and they need to connect. And when I was involved with the National Center for Preventive Law at California Western School of Law in San Diego, they had this think tank, it was National Center for Preventive Law. And I was their leader for startups and small businesses nationwide. And one of the other lawyers who was involved with that think tank wrote this really great paper called "What's the Matter with Lawyers?" And he outlined through his research, he outlined 3 big problems. And I have taken these to heart and let them shape my practice. He said that lawyers generally are not affordable, they're not accountable, and they're not accessible. And so we have really made a concerted, intentional effort from day one to always be affordable, always be accountable to the client. That's what our written contract is about. And always be accessible. That's why we have no gatekeepers. The business model, when it comes down to affordability for profit from legal, is elegant because everything profitable is affordable. If you can spend money and make more money than you spent, you can afford to spend the money.
Right. By its very nature, anything profitable is affordable. So if we can show you how to profit from having legal support, the argument that you can't afford it evaporates in a puff of logic. It's just gone, right? You can afford legal services because we can show you how to make them profitable. I'm not going to say that it doesn't require a significant investment in advance. Of course it does. But you're not going to get anything valuable for free. There's no such thing as a free lunch. By the way, that's one of the other common sense economics principles. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You're going to get me to read an economics book, aren't you, Noel? You're going to get me to read this thing.
You should. You absolutely. Every one of your listeners should get this book. It's now in its 2nd or 3rd edition. I think the most recent one was done in 2016.
I'm going to love it. I'm going to devour it. I'm going to send you a selfie of me awake with at 4 o'clock, clutch 4 o'clock in the morning, clutch with this book to my chest, oh my God, this is amazing.
It'll blow your mind. And you know what?
I love what you said because go ahead.
I was always the kind of person who avoided economics because I was always stronger in school in linguistics than in math. I considered myself more of a words person. There are crazy people. I have this friend who said, I never watched Friends growing up because I was a Seinfeld person and I always thought you had to choose. And I was like, what? And it's like people who pick a tribe. They're like, oh, I like Star Wars, not Star Trek. And I'm like, you can like both. It's okay. And I guess I did the same thing early in my life as a youngster, as someone in school. I thought I'm more of a words person than a math person. And I associated economics with math, complex calculations, numbers, all these things. And I thought, yeah, that's not really for me. It wasn't until I got to law school and my mentor had a PhD in economics from University of Chicago. Yay! And so anyway, he had studied with the best and brightest minds, Richard Posner, Gary Becker, people like that, Nobel laureates, in economics. And he had been strongly influenced by those men. And he taught economic analysis of law. And because I really loved his teaching style and everything, I took that class and I actually ended up with the top grade in economic analysis of law. And one of the things that I realized was that this little easy to read book that he had as supplemental reading, assigned reading, the Common Sense Economics book, that was the real textbook. That was the real casebook, the supplemental reading, you know. Of course, he taught from the Economic Analysis of Law casebook by Richard Posner, but the real lessons, the powerful lessons he needed the students to learn were in that supplemental Common Sense Economics book. And I devoured that thing. And I've gone back to it over and over and over. I've purchased that book 3 times. I've bought it as gifts for other people because the lessons in it will reshape how you think, because economics is the science of human decision making. Economics is the science of human decision making. And when you understand how to adjust incentives for yourself and for others, you can help everybody get more of what they want. And that's the name of the game.
I freaking adore that. So now that we've talked about reshaping how you think, I love that, like, already we have reshaped how I think about economics. We have reshaped how I think about legal. We have reshaped how I think about lawyers.
I love it.
I need you to read.
My life is complete in this moment. Like, this is
no, it's not. You got one more task. You got one more task ahead of you.
Okay.
You need to reshape how I think about Star Trek.
Oh my God. Well, how do you think about Star Trek?
I know very little. Honestly, like the Seinfeld versus Friends thing that you just came up with is a horrible lie. And I was never taught, like, I'm a big Star Wars girl, and I was never taught wars or Trek. But I came into most science fiction, most fantasy later in life. And by then I was already an established Star Wars girl. Now, I think you can love both. I'm looking forward to loving both. But because there are 97,000 episodes of 87,000 different spin-offs of Star Trek, and there are like 75 billion species across millennia, I'm a little intimidated on starting, Noel. I'm a little intimidated. It's like calling an attorney. Like, I just don't know how to jump in. So that's why I brought you here. What does any of this legal, economic, anything have to do with anything in the Star Trek universe? Enlighten me, please.
Well, there is a much maligned species in Star Trek called the Ferengi, and they were actually developed as a caricature of the worst excesses of capitalism. They were like greedy little goblins who care about profit above everything else, and they live by these rules of acquisition. And I think it's like one of the rules of acquisition is never place friendship above profit, right? Yeah, never place friendship above profit. Another one is treat people in your debt like family. Exploit them.
Cute. I like these little buggers. They sound terrible.
They were designed to be terrible, but actually in Deep Space Nine, which was the 3rd Star Trek series, there's this character named Quark. He runs the bar, and I've often heard Star Trek 1, the original series, and then Star Trek: The Next Generation, been analogized to like Wagon Train, that old Western show, Wagon Train. They're like, it's basically like Wagon Train in space, right? That's the way they described it. And then Deep Space Nine, because it doesn't really, like, it's about a space station, which is in a fixed, they're not traveling through the galaxy. The space station's adjacent to this wormhole that takes them to another quadrant of the, like, light years, hundreds of light years away of the galaxy.
That's convenient placement.
Right. So they're kind of, well, they built the space station next to this planet. And anyway, it's this whole big thing. So anyway, they go kind of exploring the Gamma Quadrant a little bit on the other side of the galaxy. So there's a bit of exploration in Deep Space Nine, but it really is more fixed. And it's more like, what was there's another Western that they compared it to. They said, well, if the original series and Next Generation are Wagon Train in space, then Deep Space Nine is like this other show, but it's about a town. It's about a Western town. And Quark is basically the old guy that runs the bar. Like, he's the bartender. He's this Ferengi that runs the bar, and he's always doing these shady deals on the side. And then the sheriff in town is Odo, this shape-shifting alien who like can take on the shape of anything. And he's always trying to bust Quark doing these. Quark is the name of the Ferengi who runs the bar. He's always trying to bust Quark doing his shady deals. And really, if you don't watch Deep Space Nine for anything else, it's great to watch as it's almost like a frenemies comedy between Quark and Odo. Like that was the only thing that really drew me into it, was the relationship between this Ferengi guy who's like always just trying to make a buck at any cost, right? But secretly has a heart of gold that he doesn't want anybody to see. And this sheriff who wants everybody to think that he's a badass, but is actually really sensitive. And Quark and Odo grow to become spoiler alert, they grow to become really good friends over the course of the series. And watching that relationship develop it warms the cockles of my little lawyer heart. I just love that. Next Generation is the other series that's worth watching. And it's just, it's deeply flawed at a technical level because it was made in the late 80s, early 90s, science fiction with limited budget and so on. So it's not as flashy as a lot of stuff is, right? Imagine Star Wars before they did all the CGI stuff to it. Like, you love it because it's amazing and it was better without all the CGI garbage that Lucas threw into it. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff is like obviously fake, like you look at it and you're kind of like, okay, well, that doesn't really hold up from a special effects standpoint, but damn, that's some good story writing, or damn, that's some good character writing. And the characters
it's a good time. That's what I say about most of all of the Star Wars universe. It's like, that was a refreshing adventure into someplace fun. I love the way that you're positioning. It sounds like Deep Space Nine sounds like Space Deadwood. And I'm
okay. That's fair.
That sounds good. But so I want to talk about these Ferengi dudes. Number one, why are greedy people always short? I'm 4'11" and I'm the least greedy person I know.
Honestly, I think it's anti-Semitic. Honestly, I think that's the thing. And there is a lot, and I'm not going to bash Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, but if I wanted to, there are some salacious details of his biography that I could share. I don't want to do that. I don't think you should ever malign people after their death, because it's impossible, number one, for them to defend themselves. Right. And number two, everything is subject to interpretation. And so I think even the best people who have ever lived are still deeply flawed, like all of us. We're all human, and it's our flaws that make us beautiful. It's also our flaws that make us ugly.
Yeah.
It's, life is only precious because it's finite. Life itself is flawed in the fact that it's finite. And yet it's still beautiful because it's finite. If you could just live forever, then eventually, like, all the existential value that you get out of everything would be diminished. You reach a point of diminishing returns in the joy that you get from life, and it wouldn't be fun anymore. Like, imagine being this ancient being who's literally seen it all. You've literally experienced everything because you've just lived forever, and nothing brings you joy anymore because everything is old hat.
Yeah.
Everything's exciting when it's new and fresh and wonderful. And if you just live forever, you're never going to get that anymore. So it's almost like, I don't know. I love people's flaws. I love them where they are. And I like to see them on a journey of self-discovery, discovering the flaws, not hiding them, acknowledging them, and then working on a journey of self-improvement, making themselves better. I try to do that in a business context and say, look, the very first step of we hate legalese, right? Everybody hates legalese.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Ferengi rules of acquisition is small print leads to large risk.
Ooh.
Small print leads to large risk. It's one of the great Ferengi rules of acquisition.
I freaking love that, because I was going to ask you, what do they get exactly right? And I think this is so key, because I tell people all the time, why does small print exist except to try to trick people? And that this is me coming from a sales aspect, not a legal aspect, right? But if your policy dictates something, be upfront about it. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to relegate it to quick speak at the end of a commercial. You don't have to shove it into the footer of your website or, a privacy document. If you have these policies in place, put them out there freely. Okay, so I got to ask you one more question, and then I promise I will release you back to your very busy lawyerly day. My question for you is, I somehow have wound up in space in the magnificent Trekkie future. And I'm alone and I don't know anyone, but I do know because of our conversation that I need to find an attorney as quickly as possible. Where do I start? Who's going to be the closest thing to an attorney that I can find in space?
Well, where in space are you? Space is a big place.
I know that. I don't know where I am. I'm on the thing that doesn't move. I'm in Deep Space Nine.
Well, you would go down to Odo's office and tell him that you need to speak to the advocate. I mean, you'd go to the sheriff's office, right? Who's going to be closer to a lawyer than the sheriff, right? So Odo's basically the de facto sheriff. He's the head of security. So if you needed to find a lawyer on Deep Space Nine, that's probably where I would go.
I like it. I like it very much. I do.
It's not an exciting or sexy answer, but it's accurate.
It's a good answer. I need to know where to find an attorney in space. You have just told me that, and all of our listeners. So one more question for you, and then I promise I'll let you go. Number one, are your services available nationwide, or are they only available in your state?
The services are available nationwide because we associate local counsel when it's necessary. So I'm only licensed in Tennessee, but if you need a lawyer in a different state, that's okay. We can work with you. You can still hire our firm, and then our firm will associate local counsel where that's necessary. That means that at no marginal additional cost to you, we will basically get the local legal support on your team that you need. I try to make that as simple as I can. It's a little bit technical and complicated, and obviously that's something for me to talk about with an individual client whenever we have that onboarding conversation. But the answer is the services that we provide can be made available anywhere in the United States.
Amazing. And knowing that, what is the best way for my U.S. listeners to start a conversation with you, to get in touch with you?
I think a lot of people believe that they just don't need a lawyer. They don't see the need for it, and they don't know how we could benefit them, how we could improve their legal profitability, how we could add value, how we could lower stress, how we can protect them from legal risk. They don't see that on the front end. And so I would say the best way to start a conversation with us is to take our free Profit from Legal Scorecard and really use that to objectively measure the potential for us to contribute something very valuable to your business. If you don't think you need a lawyer, I would challenge you to say, take the scorecard and let's see. And the scorecard is great. It will, just by answering the questions, you'll say, oh, I hadn't thought to even ask a lawyer about that. Or, oh, yeah, I didn't even really consider that perspective, because you can't see your blind spots. That's why they're blind spots. You don't know what you don't know. And the scorecard is great at revealing the things that you never even thought about. It doesn't take very long, 5 to 10 minutes. You can breeze through the scorecard. Take that. At the end of the scorecard, we have 2 free gifts for you. First, we have a 15-page Profit from Legal report that unpacks the legal profitability concept and all the different ideas around legal profitability that we want you to know. The second one is, I said nobody likes legalese, right? Nobody likes the small print. Small print leads to large risk and so on. But we do like legal ease. Legal ease. 5 E's: encounter, explore, enrich, envision, and enforce. That's our signature method. That's the process that we follow in order to deliver higher legal profitability for our clients. And we've given away at the end of the Profit from Legal Scorecard our 5 Legal Ease Canvas. This is a really powerful tool that you can use kind of DIY style. It comes with an exercise built in. It comes with instructions, and you can use this over and over and over to help you solve problems and improve relationships in your business. Absolutely free gift. So when you take the scorecard, you'll get that. You'll also get the opportunity to book in for a 10-minute chat. So when you take the scorecard, that sort of sets the tone, kind of gives you some background knowledge about how this is all applicable to you. It's a really valuable free tool. You get these gifts, and then you can book in for a 10-minute chat. And in that 10-minute chat, what we want to do is connect with you as a person. You asked how to start a conversation with us. That 10-minute chat is connecting you to a human being, a lawyer who wants to add a lot of value, reduce stress, and lower legal risk in your business. In the chat, we start with that first E of the 5 legal E's, encounter. We encounter you where you are. We meet you where you are. We listen to where you are. We look at your scorecard with you and we say, this is what we think that would be the best next step for you to take towards improving your legal profitability. We give you a starting point and we do it with you right there, holding your hand if necessary, but so that you're not alone and you're not making these decisions alone and you're not leaning on your own understanding, that you're actually there with somebody else who can support you and accompany you through that process. Because it is scary to try to encounter something that you're unfamiliar with. You don't really know the metes and bounds, as it were, of the whole legal question. And for a lawyer to be there with you, helping you out, accompanying with you on that journey, I think is a really powerful thing. And it does reflect our commitment to being affordable, accessible, and accountable to our clients.
So many of us only think about lawyers when it comes time to enforce. So I love, encounter, explore, enrich, envision, enforce. I can only think of 2 more things you could add that, which would be live long and prosper. Noel, it has been an absolute joy having you on the show today. Thank you for educating me about legal profitability. Thank you for educating me about lawyers with souls. Thank you for educating me about Star Trek. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me.
Heck yes. Everybody, I will be back in just a minute with my final thought and your homework for the week. Spoiler, it will not contain legal things or Star Trek, as I myself am still learning. Well, hey there, listeners. I've often said that if I went back in time and told little Annie Pasnisi that I'd wind up teaching sales, I would devastate myself. No amount of storytelling or social proof or pleading or even presence would convince tiny me that I really will love a life devoted to selling. Believe me also when I tell you never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd have a podcast episode about lawyers, economics, profitability, and Star Trek. And yet here we are. And I'm freaking delighted. Couldn't be prouder, actually. We cannot yet bop from solar system to solar system, exploring the riches of this vast universe. But it is really damn easy to explore new ideas and find new voices to guide us. Your homework this week is to broaden your horizons. You know that corner of your business that you do your best to ignore, or that skill set you know you should at least attempt, but you can't seem to muster the gumption, or that expert you've been meaning to sit down with, but you don't really understand what the heck it is they do, so you don't know what to ask them. Those horizons. Pick a rabbit hole or a wormhole or a cosmic gateway and jump on through it. Bring your library card. Open yourself up to what you find, and most importantly, treat it all with curiosity and an explorer's heart. If you need a few suggestions, for economics, read Noel's favorite, Common Sense Economics by James D. Gortney. For legal, take Noel's own Profit from Legal Scorecard, which you'll find in the show notes. And for selling, check out my free masterclass, Making Selling Easy Without Getting Sleazy, at anniePruggles.com/easy not sleazy. You don't need to go where no man has gone before. Simply where you haven't. I can't wait to hear about what you find. Too Legitimate to Quit is brought to you by the Non-Sleazy Sales Academy and me, your host, Annie P. Ruggles. If you struggle to sell because you don't know how to put a price on all that goodness in you and you don't like the way that your competitors do it, I have great news for you. You can find my free challenge, Making Selling Easy Without Getting Sleazy, anytime at www.anniePruggles.com/easy not sleazy. Our show is edited and produced by Andrew Sims of Hypable. Our fabulous theme tune is by Riley Horbasio, who I found on Fiverr. Our gorgeous podcast art is by Francois Vigneault, who I found on Upwork. And our marketing team is led by the unbelievably life-saving Nick Bonatadis. Don't forget to check today's show notes for more information about our fabulous guests, plus some continuing resources and some Etsy finds from other super fans of today's topic. All pop culture elements mentioned in this episode remain the sole intellectual property of their respective owners. I do not own them, so please don't sue me.